Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to wrap this laptop with a custom skin in this Holographic Hex tint by Vvivid brand automotive vinyl wraps. Alright, so to begin with, a couple tools that you'll want to have ready and on hand. You'll want to have some sort of utility knife for cutting. I have this stainless steel body with 30-degree snap-off blades. You'll want a squeegee of sorts. This is just a regular squeegee. If you have them, you'll probably want something like these micro squeegees, which basically are small squeegees that you can get into fine details like this to trace cut lines or fine detail lines to get the vinyl wrap locked in really well. And then you'll want to have a heat source to help you out. I'm just using this heat gun here. Bought it off of Amazon. You can buy it from Vvivid as well. And then of course you want to have your laptop. This just happens to be my old Dell laptop here. It's pretty plain, pretty easy, pretty flat. Just a emblem in the middle that's a little bit raised, which is what I'm going to use this for, and I'm just going to trim out this circle here. Alright, to get started, make sure that your surface is fully cleaned. I just wiped it off with a little bit of general cleaner. And then wiped it down with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol, rubbing alcohol mix with water. Clean all the edges, clean all the areas. Use a microfiber towel like this one here. And before you get started, give it one last dust wipe down to make sure there's no dust trap, because this is actually a clear vinyl. This is a really cool vinyl. You can see it's got a holographic sheen to it. It's got a hex pattern in it, which is kind of foil or metallic looking, which has the holographic sheen, and it's on a clear. The vinyl itself is actually clear. Peel this here. You can see that it's actually a clear vinyl. This is actually automotive vinyl. This is Vvivid's headlight and taillight tint, but it's just vinyl wrap that's clear. If you had wrapped your laptops before with pre-made stickers, those are just basically vinyl wrap that have just been pre-cut into stickers and have a graphic sometimes printed on them. This in and of itself is a graphic as well, in a sense. So I've got a piece cut out big enough to go over the edges, giving myself about an inch or so of leeway to be able to maneuver and hold on to the vinyl. Since this is clear, you want to hold on the edges that's not going to be applied, because since it's clear, any fingerprints that you get onto the adhesive on a part that's going to be applied will show through. With that being said, I've already checked and made sure this covers it fully, so I'm going to start peeling off the vinyl from the backing paper. Okay, I'm holding the edges where I'm so that I don't get my fingerprints on it, and then I'm going to lightly just drop it on. This is fairly low tack, as you can see. I'm sliding on it. It grabs maybe just a little bit, but I can slide it on here, so it's repositionable. And you can see I can even flop it on there. It's kind of like making a bed, if you will. I just want to make sure I got it on here nice and centered before I start pressing anything down and squeegeeing pretty hard. All right. So now I've got it about where I think I want it. I'm going to take my squeegee and start squeegeeing it down. I'm just starting in the center, and I'm going to make my way out to each side. Now this is a laptop, so just be careful when you're pressing. Looks like I got a little bit of something right here, so let me get that out from under. Sometimes when you peel the backing paper from vinyl wrap, it creates static, which can just draw up particulates and debris from areas just around you that you didn't even know was there. Anyway, what I was saying was, this is plastic case in here, so be careful when you're pressing down on this that you don't press too hard and crack your case. And just make sure that you're taking care, especially when we start adding a little bit of heat, to make sure that we don't melt the plastic or anything like that. Alright, so I've got it laid down. Basically, I'm almost done. I just have the tricky parts to do, which is going to be wrapping around these corners here. And so what I'll do is I'm going to lift this up a little bit to hopefully give you a better angle to show what I'm doing. This is going to be a little bit wonky for me, because I'm going to try to do it so that I can show you in the camera, but typically I would have it face more towards me. Alright, so vinyl wrap, if you've ever used it before, vinyl in general, if you heat it, I'm going to use low heat with my heat gun. It will relax the vinyl and you'll start to see it basically fall as I'm heating the vinyl. So hopefully you saw how that happened there. Now when it's also heated and warmed, the vinyl is more stretchable. And so what I'm going to do is while it's heated and warm, I'm going to pull it back just a little bit and stretch this vinyl and basically wrap it around that corner edge there. Okay, wrap it around, press it down so it seals. Then I have these areas here, so what I'm going to do is now I'm going to kind of pull it this way so I get any of those wrinkles and tension out that way. Same thing this way right here. Okay. Then I'm going to lay it down a little bit more over. I'm going to roll it over the edge like this and start to press it down over the edges here. Press it down over the edges here. Okay. So now that I've got that wrapped over, I've given it a little bit of stretch. And when you stretch vinyl and you hit it with heat, it shrinks back. You may have heard people say vinyl wrap, particularly for cars and such, they sometimes call it a shrink wrap. And that's not entirely correct. Yes, it does shrink, but it's not shrink wrap in and of itself as like you would like on food grade things. So I'm going to hit it with a little bit of heat since I did stretch it, and you'll see that the wrap kind of relaxes again. And I really want to hit it over the corner and then make sure that it's molded down so that it does not lift. Now, the reason why wrap shrinks is because it has a memory. Basically, when you've stretched it, you've changed its shape. And so since you've changed its shape and it has a memory, when you hit it with heat, and actually over time, it will want to go back to its original shape. So if you've stretched it, it'll want to shrink back, because that's its original shape, back to its original shape. So I've molded it over, made sure it's laid down. I'm just giving it some more heat to make sure that there's not any leftover stretch in there and that it won't lift up on the corners. And then I just want to make sure I've molded this down. You want to make sure you don't have any little finger-like protrusions on the edges there, because that just gets ugly. Alright, so that corner should be good and secure and locked down nicely. Alright, so continue. I'm going to roll down the edge, and you're going to do that basic process for the remaining corners. So I'll do one more here. I'm going to roll down the edge a little bit. So I'm going to actually heat my vinyl. I'm going to bring it back a little bit. Alright, thought I saw some minor debris there. Bring it back just a little bit. Heat this whole triangular area, this area that I'm holding. That way the stretch is not concentrated in one area, it's over a broad area. I'm going to lay it down, and then, like before, I'm going to pull it out this way and stretch it out, stretch it and form it over that corner. Just like that. Use my finger to smooth it down. These edges here, roll them down over the edge. You may see some horizontal or angular lines going that way, so just kind of bring it that way, and what you'll do is you'll get those wrinkles out. Bring it this way. Just like that. Okay, now that I've got that down, we'll roll this down just a little bit more, and then now same process. Since I did stretch it a little bit, I'm going to bring this up a little bit so that it can, when it shrinks, it'll shrink and hug itself around that corner. Hit it with heat, let it relax. I don't know if you saw how it just kind of fell back down on itself. Once it's relaxed and there's no more stretch, because you've let it shrink itself back down to its original shape, even though it is molded over this, basically you've taken out the stretch that you did. So I'm just molding it down to make sure that everything is the way I want it to be. And what I'm going for is, if you can see, hopefully you can, there's the silver part of the case and then the black part of the case. And in between is the two seals, or is a seam where the two parts of the screen case meet together. So that's going to be my cut line. What I want to do is I want to make sure I have it covering that gap all the way, so that when I trim this out, I can use that as my cut line. Alright, so that corner, I'm going to hit it again with heat one more time since I molded everything around. I want to make sure I get rid of the last any amount of stretch that may still be in there. Basically, I'm relaxing the vinyl, And then once it's relaxed, you can just kind of just help, form it around the edges there. All I'm doing now is pressing it down to form it over the corner, this round edge, because you are trying to put a two-dimensional object, the flat piece of vinyl, over a three-dimensional object, the laptop, in particular this curve. Alright, so that corner is essentially done. What I'm going to do now is just heat this edge here in between the two towards the front, and that's just relaxing it, as you have already seen a couple times now. And it's going to take, since it's relaxed now, it should just fall over onto the edge nice and easily, and it's soft or softer, and I can just help it down and roll it around. Again, I'm trying to go for where the two plastic pieces, the silver part of the screen case and the black part of the inside of the screen case, come together. Alright guys, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do these other two corners, and then we'll get back to the video. So I've got all four corners wrapped, as you can see. Pretty cool. You can see the holographic effect and the hex pattern. Kind of a subtle low-key thing where it looks like a regular laptop, but then because it's clear, but then you notice that it's got this honeycomb or hexagonal pattern on it. Alright, so the next step is to, since I've got it all, try to get this open again here. Since I have this set up on a seam, just heat this down just a little bit more to make sure everything is set. What I'm doing is make sure the vinyl is set back down, because it was kind of stuck to itself and I lifted the lid, it might have lifted it up a little bit, so I want to make sure everything is still set down before I cut. So where the black and the silver meet together, there's a natural seam in there, and you're going to use that as your cut line for your knife. Now again, have a sharp, super sharp utility knife. I like the ones with these 30-degree blades because it has a more of a point to it. And so just take out just a little bit. You don't need a lot. Find that seam, and then you'll want to put the point, just tip of the point right into that seam. And then again, make sure your knife is super sharp, because you'll want to then glide your knife in that seam. That way it's floating in between the silver and the black part, but not cutting the laptop itself. So take your time with this, because you don't want to cut up your laptop, and you don't want that tip jumping out of the seam. This is a little bit awkward as I'm doing it, so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm trying to do it overwards, otherwise I would be in a different position trying to cut this. So keep this just the tip of your blade inside the seam, and you'll be okay, because that's just a gap. There's nothing in there. You're not cutting the black, or the silver in this case, piece of the, or part of the laptop case. Take your time so that you don't mess up your laptop, because this blade is super sharp and it will scratch your laptop or cut into the plastic if you are not careful. So again, just taking my time. Find that seam. Okay, and again, I'm just going to follow it around. Turn it this way. The seam gap is a little bit bigger right here around that corner, so it's a little bit easier to follow. So I'm just going down the side here. Again, your blade needs to be super sharp, so I recommend, if you haven't, with this snap-off blade, snapping off a blade to make sure you have the sharpest possible, because you don't want any drag. You just want it to slice through the vinyl just like hot knife through butter. Alright, I'm going to stop there just for a second. Bring it out, cut away, and peel off what I have cut so far so you can see what this is looking like. so now that you see that I've cut that piece off, just going to give it a little bit of heat. A little bit of heat. I think that had to kick in and warm up first. Just make sure that edge is totally sealed. If I hit the corner, because I took that extra time to relax it all, no fingering or pulling back on that corner there, or of any of the edges actually. I'll bring this up a little closer to the camera so you can see what it's looking like. That's such a cool effect, huh guys? Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and trim out the rest of this, and I'll probably just put it on accelerated speed video. Alright, now that I've got it all cut off, what I'm going to do is hit edges again with very low heat, just to make sure everything seals down nice and tightly. Alright, so essentially I'm done. I could leave it like this if I wanted to, but I've got two parts I'm going to cut out. One is this circle here, and I'm just going to peel off the whole circle. And then two, since there's a separate piece here, I'm just going to cut in that line so that there's not an air gap underneath the vinyl. So what I'm going to do is, because I was cutting around that edge, I'm going to go ahead and snap off part of my blade so I have a fresh tip. And on this part of the vinyl right here, this line, I'm going to trim, just basically cut that so that it's free. Again, that just is another seam here, and I'm cutting it so that there's no air underneath the wrap or the skin. And same concept as doing on the edge, just floating the very tip of the blade in that seam. You don't want to push hard or anything. Again, the reason I snapped off a new blade is to make sure my blade is extremely sharp, and that just with the weight of the knife is enough to basically cut through this vinyl without any pressure really at all. Come around the corner, take your time. Come around another corner, take your time. There we go. Take my micro squeegee, just run that right in that gap there, and what that does, it will tuck the two now loose edges down into the gap a little bit. Just touch it with a little bit of heat. Alright, and then the last thing I'm going to do is basically trim out this circle. This is raised a little bit, so I'm just going to use the outer edge of this emblem as my guide. Take your time doing this. I have to take my time doing this so I don't scratch the case of my laptop or the emblem itself. Just trying to find a good, get this started nice and well. There we go. So I'm deliberately taking my time and going very slowly here, because although it is a raised object that I can use to guide the tip of my blade, it's raised only a little bit. So I want to take my time doing this to make sure I don't cut where I don't want to cut, and scratch the case of the actual case of the laptop. You can see I kind of have my blade, or I do have my blade pointed in towards the symbol itself, and that's because I'm trying to get into the where the base of the symbol and the laptop case meet together. I just want to be right in that little valley there is where I want to put the tip of the blade in there to cut. Make sure I'm staying on track here. Just try to take my time so I don't do anything crazy or wonky. So let me see where I'm at here. I'm going to try to pick this up. Good. Alright. I wanted to also make sure I actually did cut through, because I'm using little to no pressure in doing so. And that's why it's important to have your blade super sharp. Now, if you're not comfortable doing this, then I'd recommend don't do it. So do what's comfortable. I mean, this covering the emblem itself, because it's clear, actually doesn't look too bad. I could have left, like I said, I could have just left it well enough alone and been perfectly happy with it, but I just wanted to trim this out anyway, so that the logo is more visible. There we go. Just kind of go over everything one more time with a little bit of low heat to set everything in place. Vvivid's adhesive is a heat activated vinyl, so when you hit it with a little bit of heat, the adhesive starts to flow or bind or set a little bit better. This will also help you find any air bubbles you might have had in here. Alright guys, that is a wrap, pun intended. So now I've got this cool low-key skin vinyl wrap on my laptop, where it looks kind of unassuming from a distance, but as you get closer you can see the holographic sheen or effect, as well as a cool hexagon pattern on it. So hopefully you found this video to be helpful and informative. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Thanks a lot guys.